Hey y'all, this is Elizabeth Hart with Hart Family Farms. Today I'm going to show you the process that we go through when we process our chickens. I had someone request to show the full process, so this is going to just be a walkthrough of what we do. I don't have any chickens, unfortunately, that need to be processed right now, so it's just going to be kind of show and tell without seeing the blood and guts, so maybe that will be helpful for some of you. I might be able to make a video in the future with an actual bird or birds. So let's get started. Here's my kill cone. So you want to put the birds head down with their feet out, and make sure their wings are tucked, and put the breast facing you. So have their neck be facing you out the bottom. You're gonna make a cut on either side of the throat. So you're gonna hold their head right here, and I like to put my thumb right at the edge of where their skull meets their neck. You can kind of feel it, and separate the feathers with your thumbs, because a lot of times if they have really thick feathers, you're trying to cut through the feathers and you can't get a good cut. You want it to be quick, for a quick, painless death. So try and separate those feathers with your thumb right there, and you're holding on to the skull, kind of pulling it tight, and then you're going to take your knife right near your thumb. I would suggest wearing a glove, a cut-proof glove. You're going to do a quick slit right along the jugular, and it should be a steady stream of blood. If it's like squirting or just like a little dribble, you need to make sure you get the vein really severed. You're going to be avoiding cutting the windpipe. You want the bird to maintain breathing, because the heart can keep pumping the blood out quickly. If you sever the windpipe, then they basically suffocate. You don't want that. You want them to bleed out quickly, pass out. So yeah, you're making the cut on both sides. I do both sides. Some people just do one side, but I find it's easier to get them to quickly bleed out if you do both sides. So you're holding their head firmly, making the slit right where the skull and the neck are meeting. There's kind of like this dip in their neck, and you're cutting right there. Steady stream of blood on both sides. It helps if you make sure that the bird was properly hydrated before you do processing. If you can make sure they have access to water, that will help them bleed out more quickly and easily. Sometimes that's not possible depending on how you have them crated the night before processing. So yeah, so you have them in the kill cone, and usually I'm squatted like this. Do a quick cut, turn, do the other side, quick cut, move on to the next bird. Cut, 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 cut. And then I normally spray off in between that process. Then they move on to the scalder. The scalder needs to be heated to approximately 150 degrees to get the feathers to loosen off of them. We put the birds up here on this rack. Their feet go in here. So these things kind of separate, and you can stick their feet in here and they hang down. You want to put their breast toward you. So same as with the cones, you put the breast toward you. Here you want to put the breast toward you, because when you turn this around, they won't float on the water as easily. They go down in the water much easier. So you're separating, put their 1 foot in here, 1 foot in here, 1 foot in here, 1 foot in here. You can fit 4 birds here. Then the process that we do with this is 5 times 5 times 5. So it's 5 seconds in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bring the birds out, let them sit for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you're gonna do that 5 times. 5 times in, 5 times out, 5 times. If you have an older bird, you may need to do it longer than that. You can test as you're going. If you get to 5 rounds, you can pull on their tail feathers and see how easily the tail feathers come out. If they're really stuck, then I'd go in for another 5 and check again. So it just looks like this. You dip it down in, 5 seconds, bring it out 5 seconds. And the reason we do that is because if you do it too long, if you just let them sit in there for 10 seconds straight, you can cook the meat. And also you can have some tearing of the skin when you put it in the plucker. If you've heated too long, you can have both tearing of the skin or cooking of the meat, which we don't want. If you don't do it long enough, the feathers won't come out, and then you'll be having to hand pull a bunch of feathers. So we don't want that either. So there's a science to this. The 5 times 5 times 5 works great for us. You may need to do it longer if you have older birds. If you don't have Cornish cross birds, you may need to do it longer. Roosters usually need more than hens. And then additionally, you may have the stock pot type scalder. So you'd be holding the birds by their feet and dipping them down into the pot of water. I would still do the 5 times 5 rule for that. And you'd want your water to be 150 degrees in that. This maintains temperature at 150 degrees on its own. If you have the stock pot, you'll need to monitor your temperature as you're processing. Moving on to the plucker. So as soon as you scald, you want to immediately take the birds out of the holder and straight into the scald or the plucker. You always want to make sure the plucker is turned on before you put the birds in. So you cut it on here and get the motor going, and then start tossing your birds in. You can toss them in one at a time, all at once. And then cut on your water. So the water is spraying out the top. The birds tumble around, and these little fingers touch against the birds, and it plucks, and all the feathers come out in the bottom down here. And you want to monitor that they're not getting stuck. Sometimes they get their heads stuck on the side. They might be tearing. The skin might be tearing. They may not be flipping around good, so you may need to help them flip around. But usually this thing works great if you have 4 birds in it, and they're not like giant. But yeah, 4 birds helps because they bounce off of each other. So you want to make sure you have at least 4 birds that you're working with. That's why I have a minimum of 4 birds when I process for other people. Okay, next, after they have been killed, scalded, and plucked, they come here to this table, and this is where we remove the heads, the feet, and the oil glands off their tails. So usually we have someone stationed at this table, and we would hold the bird by the neck, chest area, and you hold their head, and by this point, you know, they have the slits on both sides from over here. So usually all that's needed is you kind of twist the head and pull, and the head comes right off. And sometimes if you're dealing with Cornish cross, you'll find that you accidentally lose a head over here. That's fine. It's just better, you know, to not sever that windpipe so that you can get a good bleed out. Here, if you have an older bird, the head may not do that. You may not be able to twist and pull the head off, so you may need to cut a little bit more of the trachea and the esophagus and some of the skin, the muscles on the neck, to get it to come off. You just pull it off. That's just the head. You're leaving the neck at this point. Then we flip the bird around, and you have the 2, you know, usually yellow legs. They can be other colors. And there's a joint their leg, and you feel in where the joint is, and you take your knife. You're not cutting the bone, and you just kind of wiggle it and get the feet to come off. Then we flip the bird over. There's an oil gland on their tail. You can see it once the feathers are off, and I just hold the tail and I scoop the oil gland. It has a yellow oiliness to it, kind of like a fatty texture to it, so you can kind of see it if you start to cut into it. You just scoop that out. The purpose of that is it can taint the meat. It can give a bad smell to the meat. But that's basically what we do at this table. And we spray the birds off so they're nice and clean, and then they come over to this table for evisceration. I do have a video on YouTube already on evisceration, so you can go and watch that. And it's with an actual bird, so that would be more helpful than me explaining it right now. But basically, to eviscerate the bird, you do a cut right above the vent, so where they poop out on their back. I just kind of hold the skin below the keel bone, and I cut to get into the cavity of the bird, into the abdomen, right above the vent, and just kind of pull it open like this. Then you also want to do a cut right above the breastbone. So again, holding the skin, and you're cutting right above the breastbone just to get down into the rib cage cavity. Then at the top, you want to separate out the two tubes that go down, the windpipe and the esophagus. And so you're going to just separate those out and kind of pull it away from the crawl. Hopefully you would have fasted your birds, so it helps to not feed them any grain for like 24 hours. Sometimes you can do less than that, but it helps to not have food in their crawl, in their crop, because it kind of goes everywhere when you try and pull the guts out. So when you separate out the two pipes, the windpipe and the food pipe, you can go ahead and pull out that the crawl, and it's kind of like a little pouch, and you just feel for it, and you want to separate it from the membranes. You're not pulling it all the way out. You're just getting it separated and then letting it hang out at the top of the bird while you get the rest of the guts out. And hopefully if you get it freed up enough, it will come out the back with the rest of the guts. So yeah, you just kind of get all this freed up at the top. Then you go back to your other hole that you made at the bottom, pull it open, and then you reach all the way in to the top of the breastbone. You're trying to grab all the guts at one time. Sometimes you may not be able to do that. Your hand may be too big, or there's too many guts or whatever. You can pull it out, you know, one at a time. But if you want to get faster, you want to reach in, grab all the guts, pull them out, and hopefully that trachea, windpipe, and the crawl will come out with everything. So it's like one clean swoop. Then you go back in and get the lungs. The lungs are always tucked in. They're like a spongy red material at the back of the rib cage. So you want to sweep along the inside of the ribs and on both sides and get the two lungs and pull those out. Once you do that, you've got everything out of the bird. Usually the end of the intestines will still be attached to the vent area, and sometimes you'll have some feces in there. So you want to cut the vent off with the intestines still attached, ideally. So you pull everything out, all the guts. You got the vent still attached to the end of the intestines, so you're going to scoop out the vent with it still attached to the rest of the intestines. That usually will maintain that you don't get any poop, but there still is always the possibility that there'll be poop. Usually, sometimes when you reach your hand in, the pressure of that will make whatever poop is left come out. So just make sure you're rinsing a lot. Make sure you have your your water source handy at this station, especially so that anytime there is poop, or you may find that the gallbladder busts. It's a very green liquid and it stains. It'll stain your hands, your clothes, the bird. So it's important to wash right away if that happens, if you have any poop or gallbladder busting problems. So you definitely want water at this station. So once you get all the guts out, you cut the vent off and you get the lungs out, then you're essentially done. You want to get rid of all the guts. We always do it at this table. We have a hole right here where we can dump the guts down into a trash can. If you're doing a lot of birds, you want to make sure you have ample space to put all the guts. And then once the bird is gutted, you want to rinse it. Rinse the outside, look for any remaining feathers, and then hold the bird up and rinse down through the top, and it comes out the bottom hole that you made. And then also rinse from the bottom to the top. I like to hold the bird by the neck when I do this and spray down and hold it over the table, and I see that the liquid that comes out of the bird is clear. There's no red blood or anything like that. Then I know the bird is clean. Then I put it down here into my cooler of ice water. They usually hang out in there for like a day if I'm doing a lot of birds. Then the next day I'll get to packaging them. As long as I keep the ice fresh and keep the coolers closed, they do pretty well for several days while I work through packaging the birds. So that's the basic process of doing the birds. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or if you have any other requests for chicken processing videos. I hope this was helpful. Thanks.